So good afternoon and welcome to each and every one of you. This is, I believe, the fifth faculty meetup. I'm so glad to have you all here. My name is Behnaz Rohani and I am a NARIC Professional Development Coordinator. I want to ask everyone, what do you all think about the next topic or the next topics for our faculty meetup?
Behnaz, your audio is fading out.
Yeah, so let
There we
me
go.
stop my video. Maybe that would make it better. So before we begin delving into our topic, which is proctor testing today, I want to ask each one of you, what are your thoughts about the topics for future faculty meetups? I'm kind of running out of topics. This is our fifth one, so I need all of you all's help. As you know, these are forums, very casual, so we just come and share our experiences, what we have had done in our online classes or face-to-face, if any of you are in blended learning. So if you want to share your ideas now, I jot them down, or if you want to contact me later, that's fine too. Anyone wants to share their thoughts with me?
Well, I have a suggestion for a topic. It's a little controversial, and that's the use of webcams during remote teaching. On the student point of view, there's an actual verifiable disability where some students react to negatively when they see their image, but you can also hide that even and let everyone else in the meeting see your camera, but you can hide your own camera. So there are workarounds. The privacy issue, you can put a virtual background to hide if you don't want to show your house or your room, but then some students don't have current or powerful enough equipment to do that. On the instructor point of view, there are actually some professors who say they're going to file a disability if they can't see their students because they can't engage with them properly. So the whole use of webcams is a nice topic for discussion. You know, can you teach with a bunch of black squares? How do students respond, you know, to their invasion of privacy? Can you work around with requesting students but not requiring it? You know, big discussion topic. What do you think?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Any other topic?
Hey, Behnaz, I have an idea.
Any other? Sure.
It kind of relates to what we're talking about today. I mean, really, if we think about it, I think the other topic would be unproctored testing. You know, the use of, I mean, is proctor testing too much of a headache? And is it almost worth in this research-based world where everything is accessible by looking it up on Google? You know, yes, we know there's apps out there, but is it really necessary to do proctor testing? You know, but if we make tests, you know, just have the ability to use notes and stuff, would that reduce test anxiety and also the need for people to even consider cheating? You know, but
yeah.
And can I add to that that maybe like alternative options instead of the typical tests that we give?
Alternative options to
like
test.
Projects and more like.
Well, that was the last one.
Yeah, it was the last one. The last faculty meetup.
Sorry, I missed it.
That's okay. That's okay. The recorded session is there, but you know, most of these topics are just so rich that I don't know by doing a 1 hour session on proctor testing, we really can do justice to the topic. So many of these can, you know, be continued. Yeah, that's awesome. Any other topic that you think it is, it's a hot topic in your teachings that you really feel that we need to touch upon that? strategy that worked in their classes, whether online or face-to-face, and one that just did not work at all. So that it be a very much like a sharing, a forum to talk about those teaching strategies. What do you all think? A good and a bad. Okay, so let us just delve into the topic of proctor testing. I know that we just wrapped up our midterm exam, and we had lots of issues with proctoring. We use Respondus Monitor with webcam, and oh boy, it was very much problematic, a lot of problems. We have used ProctorU also in our school. Of course, all of these need some getting used to. My chair is here today with us, so she can also, jump in. Welcome, Andrea. She can jump in. She's very experienced in this and kind of share her experiences and what is going on at our school. So floor is open. So if you have, just share your ideas, your experiences. That's what we are all here to learn from each other and, get something out of this meeting today. And if needed, maybe we will have this to be continued another time. All righty.
So I have a question with the Respondus. We have Respondus with video. However, we use my math lab, and my math lab will not work with Respondus. So that's the issue that we have. And our D2L, or not our D2L, our learning management system is Schoology, which we're moving into D2L, but we cannot type the math symbols into our LMS. So those are the issues that we are struggling with.
So I can actually respond to that. So I'm at Trident Technical College in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's 85 degrees here today, if that makes anybody jealous. But
Yes.
Very much.
We recently instituted a partnership with HonorLock. HonorLock is the only company that we liked that does third-party testing. Basically what happens is that you would set up a exam profile in the learning management system wherever you are. They only work in Google Chrome browsers, so that also eliminates the issue with Respondus and Chromebooks. And basically what happens is that an instructor would set up a password protected test inside whatever homework system they're using for examinations. And you set up a third-party setup where basically the student would log in through their learning management system through an HonorLock, link, and then a virtual proctor like Fred, for example, would tell the student, okay, now that I have control of your computer, go on to your homework site and I will type in the password, and the student never actually sees the password. It is a little expensive. We actually got CARES Act funding to continue it, to use it, but there's issues with everything. Obviously, nothing's perfect, but for example, this software will literally have a live person be there with the student. If anything happens in the room or the live proctor thinks that something's up, they will actually stop the test. And so that could be a light coming on or a dog walking across the screen, whatever it might be, but that's what we have used. But as I mentioned earlier, sometimes these are just headaches that are almost too avoidable, especially from the financial side. And so we were actually just probably thinking, is it really necessary to even have proctored testing? So we're actually looking at maybe even by next year at this time, not even having it, but we use HonorLock, and we had a representative come in and actually give us a presentation on it, but they do third-party testing with that.
Can I say that you can do essentially very similar to what you do, but you can do it in Respondus. You just have to go into the advanced settings and allow the website and potentially some other like transfer websites in, but it is possible to start it because we have D2L as well. I essentially go into Brightspace D2L and go to the settings, and in the advanced settings, my design and development people help me figure out what websites we needed to get there. And it's not password protected, the exam, but once they're in it, everything's timed and they can only take the exam for a certain amount of time. So we looked into HonorLock as well, and you're right, it is ridiculously expensive. It's like 5 times the cost of Respondus. And for us, I will say it was a little too intrusive.
Are you going with a third party for in D2L, or are you actually typing the test into D2L?
No, so so I go into D2L and it then takes it over to, I use XYZ Homework. And so I go over to the third party. So I make the exam in XYZ Homework, and then essentially the links take it over there. So if you're using MyMathLab, which I thought MyMathLab was Respondus enabled, but maybe
Yeah,
not.
and D2L we're just going to be starting to use that in the spring. So that's good to know. Okay.
And it's my
it will
understanding.
work.
Yeah, it will work. You just have to have somebody that knows enough to get all the links you need to get there to put them in the advanced setting.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Can I share? So thank you for sharing. So I'm at the College of the Canyons. Hi, everybody again. And we have Proctorio embedded into our LMS, which is Canvas. And then it just works with Respondus and webcams, and I'm not using it. The only advantage I could see about using it would be checking student IDs to ensure that the person who's taking the exam is the person who's enrolled in the class, which is could also potentially be an issue. And then, but I'm not using it. What I'm doing is, because currently my students are using WebAssign, so we have WebAssign in our classes, it provides automatically all of those settings that Frank mentioned. So I can also create a password. I can have the lockdown browser. I don't have a cam that looks into students directly, but what I'm doing is something that sort of came from my tenure chair, and I liked that idea. And so I'm not even sure she's doing that anymore. It popped up last spring. I'm asking my students to have a secondary device, whatever that is, and to put it away so that a little bit above, like in the right-hand side, if you extend it to a left-hand side direction, so that I can see them and their immediate work area. And I'm trying to explain to them, I'm really just trying to recreate as much as possible the classroom environment. And as I have a right to see you as I'm in the classroom, I would like to be able to see you while you're doing your exams. And again, if you angle your device in a certain way, and if you turn your desk into a corner or to a wall, I will absolutely see nothing from your inner space. So I'm not trying absolutely to invade the space. And there were a couple of students who expressed their appreciation for me not using Proctorio, because they feel a camera staring right into their face is actually more privacy invasion. And some of them said that in the setting that I was doing, they felt, oh, like this sort of feels like a classroom. So of course, there were people who didn't like it, but the person who mostly objected has shown in the exam partial integration by parts, and it was a 2-step with the e to the x, either sine or cosine, and the process was correct, and there were nowhere was shown the du, dv, you know, the steps. And so he was the one who was mostly objecting. So he would always change his angle a little bit. So I'm not sure. I will probably just let him know that I'm aware, and we will do nothing. You know, I understand that students are feeling really bad in this situation. But I'm not recording any of the sessions, so I'm just using Zoom, and that's what they appreciate. They feel that these third-party software, supervision software, they wonder, like, who is that? Who's looking at us? Where does the recording go to? So those are the issues that they're bringing up. And so this is just a live Zoom session. Again, I know it's not ideal. I'm so much looking forward to see for alternatives. I think, I mean, I don't know. I feel that in an unproctored environment, students who don't cheat will not cheat. Cheaters will always try to cheat, you know. So I don't know what to do. So thanks, anybody. I mean, everybody. I'm sorry.
Can I clarify something, Violetta, about your method? You said that Proctorio was embedded in your LMS. Are you using Proctorio? It didn't sound like it. Sounds like you're just doing
No.
Zoom or?
No, I'm just doing Zoom. Yes, so I have them in WebAssign with the lockdown browser under the lock. And I ask them to use a secondary device, which can be a phone or whatever they have. And it's on 5 occasions in the semester. We have 4 exams and the final. So I tell them for those 5 occasions, I really wish to see you. And it's announced in my orientation letter. So they know ahead of time that that's something, if they wish to enroll in my class, that's something that I will expect them to have.
So they're taking a WebAssign. They're taking a WebAssign test on the computer, but you join them with Zoom and they are doing computer work. Is that what I'm understanding?
Right, so that's why they need 2 devices. Our college was giving laptops to 1,000 laptops. So people who had issues with laptops, with computers, they could have gotten one. And so that's for their work for the online exam. And then the secondary device is anything else that they will use to stream Zoom. So that they will use to connect to Zoom. And then I would just look at them during the exam, and I will also ask them to show me the piece of their screen. So I don't wish, actually, Proctorio doesn't help me at all because seeing a face doesn't mean anything. I mean, I could be leaning here and I could be just browsing on another tablet, going to Photomath or whatever, where you get not only the solution, but all of the steps of the work, right? And so the facial supervision is nothing. And then also the lockdown browser, which comes from Respondus, which is coming with WebAssign, doesn't mean anything because after Googling it, I found out that you can actually crack the lock. There's a code that's online. Somebody is selling it, claiming though, I'm not supporting cheating, you know, that's the first disclaimer. But then here's the code, you can purchase it. And so I'm asking my students to really show me. I give them a photo that I found online, and it's the viewing angle, you know, where I see them from a side, a piece of their computer screen, their immediate work area, and themselves. And some of my colleagues who are doing Zoom, they're using the computer cam, I guess, through Proctorio, and then they ask students to show their paper that they're writing on. So they're seeing the hands and the paper. But again, that raises the question, what's happening on the screen, you know? Are you going, you know, so I don't know. It's a big issue maybe, and it's so much headache, you know, that I'm really not sure it's worth, because I mean, look at me, I look like a disaster. It's reflecting my psychological state, you know, and I think we're all in it. So I really hope to hear for some creative ideas.
Just one follow-up question. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot so much, but can I just ask you, are you able to identify them as the actual person that's enrolled in your class in some way?
No, because then I'm not using Proctorio, you know, that was, I felt it would have been too much, like all of the,
Yeah.
I'm trying to be, you know, like, I mean, everybody says policing. On the other hand, why do we hate police? I mean, police overseas is supposed to, like, everybody thinks about police as somebody who's supporting the society, right? And so not a bad thing. But then on the other hand, I really don't want to be policing anybody. So I'm trying to, you know, make it as moderate as possible. And I'm aware that this is not moderate. This is very extreme. So no, I'm not identifying them. I'm just hoping that they are
And
them.
I'm not either, so I was kind of joining, looking for solutions to that.
Actually can answer that, because I do something like Violetta does. We do have Proctorio on campus. I'm from Los Angeles County, so I'm part of LACCD, Los Angeles County Community Colleges. I'm at Valley College, and it is 93 degrees, Frank, here, so I don't know what you're talking about. But what I do is I don't like Proctorio either. It was really a nightmare for me in spring when we started it. So and a lot of students had complaints about it. So like Violetta said, I just was looking for another solution. And one of my colleagues said, yeah, I do it on Zoom. We do use MyMathLab and Canvas exams that we actually are able to type in. So I don't have the locking thing that you have, Violetta, for WebAssign, unless we're for our calculus series. But the thing that I do at the beginning is I ask students, I create an assignment on Canvas. That #1 assignment that they want to get points on is to turn in their ID that I'm the only one who's going to see. So they actually scan as an assignment and upload as a document. And I have them, I print them, I put them in front of me, and I tell them that this is the ID that I use, whether it's a school ID, driver license, or a passport, if they have one. If they don't, then I know I have some freshmen that they just finished high school. So they said, can I use my school ID? And I said, sure. So I use them as an assignment at the beginning. I print them. So during the exam, when I do Zoom, I do Zoom meeting with them, and I do tell them to have a second device that I can see their desk. But I first greet them at the beginning by saying, you know, let me see your face so I can see who you are according to, and I check my ID list to make sure they are who they are. And then I start my exam, and I give them the password for the exam at the Zoom meeting, and then they can start, and they could just put it away on their desk so I can see their desk. I'm not really curious about their face any longer, but their desk and how they're doing things. But it's still a nightmare, like Violetta says. This is a lot of work, and there are students who just keep demanding, well, you took forever to check my ID. Can you just, you know, give me an extra 10 minutes? Or something happened and they get disconnected and they have to pop back in. So it's just been a nightmare too. So I do it with an ID because I want to make sure it's them, because half the time I haven't seen them in the class ever. So I don't know who they are. But with the ID, I try to make sure that they are who they say they are. But it's still very difficult. So yes, I am looking for another solution.
How do you work with the time? Do you identify that the exams will be at this time? Or are these fully online classes? I'm looking at Scarlett.
Yes. So yes, our classes are fully online. We're not allowed to go on campus. So we are teaching and doing synchronous, Zoom meetings. So I do teach using, Zoom meetings. So I do see them. I do, talk to them, but sometimes I just don't see their faces. But what they do is, it's synchronous. So if it's class time 8 to 9:20, that's the time they come to take the exam. And we do have 20 minutes in between classes. So I have designed the test in a way that the moment you click is 1 hour and 20 minutes. So sometimes it overlaps, that I have to stay a little bit longer if they came in a little bit late. I try to accommodate the moment that I've checked their ID already, they got the password and they turned in, and then they're able to, start the test and have 1 hour and 20 minutes for each class exam. So it's during the class, during the time that they were supposed to come to class to hear me lecture, so, or do their, workshop, whatever the time is for that, that's the time that I give them their exam.
Okay.
So it seems that some of you are doing the exams synchronously. So we do not, I have heard individuals that we have to use WebEx, that they actually go into a WebEx room with all the students. In fact, that was from chemistry, one chemistry faculty that have the students there while they are taking exam. He's there monitoring them. But how would you monitor 30 students in a class? I don't know. I mean, it's like constantly you have to switch to different pictures.
God damn it.
Can I ask a question to those of you who are using Proctor exam? So how do you handle students who say that they don't have a camera or they don't want to have their camera on then?
I can speak to that. It's in our class notes. It's not even an option. Our tests are proctored, and the college at our different campuses, we have a room that they can schedule into they have to schedule it. It's a computer room. So for those that don't have that on their laptop, they just can schedule, like I said, in the labs through the college. And they're only allowing so many people. I honestly don't know. I think it was 15 in a room at a time, last I heard. However, because it was in my syllabus and because it was in my class notes, I want you to know, since even in March when we first started this, let's see, I have 7 classes. So I have 210 students. I have had 2 through the summer, through the spring, through the fall that even went on campus. They found computers. They borrowed somebody's computer that had the right technology, you know, that allowed them to do the lockdown browser and such. So students have found a way, and it's, we're using Respondus. And so, and mine are all online. I'm not, now I will tell you that some of the instructors that are teaching remotely with, you know, scheduled time, they are, some of them are using Respondus, some of them are doing what you were talking earlier about with the Zooming at set times. With the online, the only way we can do that is we have to offer multiple times for students, which I'm not doing.
On our campus, Barry, we got the CARES Act and we used the money, like Katie suggested, to actually buy cameras. Our campus actually, I mean, we're 9 campuses, so we're pretty big, and students who said that they identified themselves in advance that they did not have camera, we let them know where they can actually go and borrow one from the school, and they can go pick it up from our school. So that could not be an excuse. It's actually mandated, and it says it in our schedule of classes that this class uses Zoom meeting, this class uses web camera, this class needs a proctored exam. It's already announced before they even pick the class. So they cannot have that as an excuse. We cannot mandate lectures being video, on video for lectures, but it's mandated for exams because they're proctored that I need to see you. It's understood before coming to class.
So I'm seeing like the big difference, if I'm right, thinking right, is that the big difference we're talking about here is that your colleges support this, your department supports this, and where we are, we're in Oregon here, community college, we can't do that, and it's really frustrating because I'm really concerned about academic integrity, as some of us, are here too, and we're told that we can't require proctor testing. So yeah, thanks for all the information. I really appreciate what you guys are sharing with me here. I'm taking notes as I'm reading all the chats. Thanks.
One thing I want to bring up
question. Go ahead, Mari.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut in on anybody, but I just wanted to tell you, Barry, I am right there with you. Our my college, I'm also at a community college, and we were pretty much told that we could not mandate webcams from all the reasons that have already been brought up, from privacy issues to I don't have it, to you can't make me do it, to all the variety of things out there. And so I'll just tell you, I've made the decision to make my life and be okay, fine. No webcams. Like I do WebEx meetings every week. I'm teaching I'll just give you, I haven't said anything, so I'm getting it all out real fast. So I'm teaching an 8-week trig class. It's ending this week. Last week, I had our last WebEx meeting. I had one student show up for 30 minutes for an hour and a half. Okay, so even those, they're not coming to. But again, I just can't not teach. So I'm still doing that, and then I record that and I post it into, I use D2L. So I'm just trying to find all different kinds of ways. Like I use MyLab Math, and I also use the pooling option in MyLab Math. I make them submit their work to D2L for their tasks. So about 50% of their class is work that has to be submitted. I'm using the D2L quizzes. And they're even multiple choice, but guess what? If the work doesn't support it, and it's like somebody else said, if they're going to cheat, they're going to cheat. It's going to get them sooner or later, is the way I kind of look at it too. But yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from, and we don't have a testing center, period. So yeah, that's where we are. I'm in Kingwood, which is Houston, and it's a gorgeous, about 80 degrees here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
I want to be
Let it be known
outside,
I'm the
actually.
one that brought this temperature monster out. So I mean, you know,
You did it. It's all your fault.
I mean, well, it's always my fault anyway, as Banaz would know. But you know, it's just something, you know, where I was the OG with the temperature. So you know, just be aware of that.
Yeah. Question here about the responders monitor, that how would you make sure that they are not using a phone beside them? Well, lo and behold, we use the responders monitor with webcam, and they find a way around it. I had several of them. There was no picture of them at all, only in the beginning, only for the first few minutes when the system had to go checking, and they did it, and they had a good grade. So they find a way around it to turn it off or do something. Beats me. But yeah.
They do, and I'll piggyback on top of Mary. Just like you, I tried a third-party surveillance program, which was Proctorio, and there were so many technical complications and emotional, personal fears, and it just drove me crazy. I said, I'm never going to do this again. So I abandoned use of surveillance software like Proctorio, ProctorU, HonorLock, etc. The next thing I did was a class meeting, like someone else mentioned, where everyone turns their webcam on. We all meet in Zoom at a certain date and time. And I emailed the exam to them, and they all started working on it and sent their work to me on paper and pencil in a multi-page PDF file. I had them download a free scanner app on their cell phone. But I don't know about you, but in my online classes, I typically have 30, 40 students or more. And there were just so many students who missed the exam time, who couldn't make it. And I was giving so many makeups. I had it with that. So the second thing I did the third thing I did after looking at a lot of research, and I'll tell you the two big things I found in my research was that, number one, surveillance, there is no evidence that surveillance improves outcomes. If students want to cheat, as so many of you have said, they'll find a way. Some students are honest and some will cheat no matter what type of proctoring you pick. The second thing I found out in all my research is that there's no one right method for remote assessment. So what all of y'all are doing, if it works for you and your students and your classes, that's great. I noticed that there's several of you in the chat file, Sophia, Wendy, Barry, Mary, and Jeff, who don't use any form of proctoring, and there's probably more. I also noticed that quite a few of you are using the same program I do, which is MyMathLab. Someone mentioned the pooling feature. I take it one step further. I generate exams in MyMathLab with infinite variation, and I scramble the question order. So everyone's taken a different test, and I enable the show work feature. So what I have to do is when I receive their MyMathLab test, I have to open up every test and take a few minutes to award partial credit for students who have correct work partially, or maybe a decimal was given when they asked for a fraction or an integer. But you don't have to grade every question. Out of the 20 or 30 questions you assign, you might just have to grade 5 or 6. So I found that using MyMathLab with infinite variation, scramble question order, type your work into the box, which has a math editor, took no longer than grading by hand my paper exams. And I gave students like 48 hours to take it without proctoring. And I just found that it worked for me. I actually had a student in Zoom. We had a little personal meeting before the test. She broke down and started crying when she realized she didn't have to show up and use surveillance software, and she had 2 days to do it. I mean, to me, what becomes important is instructional continuity, student retention, and course completion. And those are the things I emphasize in my testing. And that kind of in a nutshell is what I'm doing. Does that help?
Awesome.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
I haven't spoken up because I'm taking notes. I'm teaching out at Oakland Community College in Michigan, so we're starting to turn the seasons. We won't see 90s again until what, June? But I didn't want to talk about the weather. Fred, I appreciate you talking about that. I'm on my second rep. I did a calculus for business class in the summer where it was completely asynchronous, and now I'm doing a statistics class asynchronous. And I think you're right about them possibly finding a way so the show work is what you've always asked. When I've had them all sitting in front of me, I've had people that will attempt to cheat. You do have that potential for them to kind of do something offline, but you know, a lot of times you catch it. You know, someone mentioned the integration by parts, they could just do it in their head. Why are they in my class? So you cut them points out and you say that just isn't right. And if they argue it, you say, that's fantastic. Let's do another one right now. And you're there. I do give them an honor code at the beginning. I give them 4 points on the test to write down with their initials. I understand that I'm not to cheat. I do an open book, open notes, but not open neighbor, not open internet. It's on the honor code there. They obviously could still do it. And if you're built that way, you're built that way, but I'm giving them 4 points to kind of go with their conscience. And if they don't, and I catch them, I go, you know, you can't pretend you didn't know you couldn't do this. You signed it. So I'm trying to do that. Now, I'll tell you the bad news is I think when I get into the fall, the campus that I'll be at in the fall is probably going to require to do all the Zooms where you kind of throw everybody on a big giant grid with Zooms, and I'll look like NORAD trying to figure out which of those little minor pictures is cheating. And I don't know how that's going to work. Or I may just go with cop on the beat, which is that they're there and they know I'm looking at them to looking at them. And if they're still slick and thinking they're getting away with it, I'm going to ask them to show work anyway. But I appreciate this meeting because I don't know the right answer. And it sounds like we have a lot of different right answers. So appreciate you letting me, I'll get that off my soapbox. Appreciate you guys letting me say something.
Thanks, Bryant. One more thing, my research shows that what works better than a end of semester high stakes exam is what many of you are doing, are frequent low stakes assessments where students explain their thinking and justify their answers one way or another. At some point, I'd like to share a couple of things that I found from a couple of mentors that I follow. And one is Francis Su, who wrote an article recently called 7 Exam Questions for a Pandemic or Any Other Time.
Wow.
And James Tanton, a blog post called COVID-19 Exposes Mathematics Education Inadequacies, a modicum of relief for educators. Are you interested in seeing a little bit about that?
Absolutely.
Sure.
All right. Can I share my desktop? Because it doesn't get any better than Francis
Sure you
Su
can.
and James Tanton.
You can.
Would you also write in the chat what those articles are so we can reference them for further reference?
Okay. Shall I do that first or shall I start sharing my screen? I'll share my screen.
Start sharing and then do that.
Okay. And I'm going to do the advanced
Share your screen, we
feature
can write
because
down.
I have a huge, giant screen. So I think this is one slide that's on a page of the AMATIC website that Behnaz created, about 15-minute teacher tips, which is, if you haven't been there yet, you guys got to check that out. Baynaz did an outstanding job of collecting from a good 10, 15, maybe even 20 of us professors who created short videos on how to improve teaching and learning. They're really awesome. So here's some examples. We've all talked about these. I think every bulleted item in this list, we've all talked about today, except maybe the take-home exam. I don't remember anybody talking about that, but it sounds like we're all doing these things. I'll leave this up for about 10 more seconds. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Can you share that file with us later?
Yeah. So here's my two mentors who, if you don't follow, I highly recommend it. Read everything they post in social media, everything they've written, books, videos they've created, blog posts they write to. These guys are brilliant. And these are hyperlinks, and I'll include those in the chat file today.
See, Fred came in today prepared. I love that. Good job, Fred. I'm proud of you as always.
Thank you, Baynaz. So I can actually show you the articles, but these are bulleted highlights. Francis Sue was recommending that you ask questions that have no one right answer. And here's a couple of bulleted items that he suggests that address persistence, curiosity, imagination, the beauty of math, and so on. And then at the bottom of the screen is a couple of James Tanton excerpts from his article that you don't want to encourage a disconnect between real life and our classes. That our students are citizens of the 21st century. And if your test questions can be answered with Symbolab or Photomath, you might be asking the wrong questions. And if you're disappointed that students aren't engaged or participating, it might be our assessments and our curriculum that's out of whack, not our wonderful students. So here is, you guys know that we're not the only ones worried about cheating. You know that Trump did not want to have a virtual debate tonight, right? Because he was afraid that Biden would cheat. So I read this article in today's paper that when Kennedy and Nixon had their virtual debate 60 years ago, Nixon accused Kennedy of cheating. Do you see that stack of papers in front of his hands? Nixon complained about that. He was using notes. So this is nothing new. All right, so here's Francis Sue's article. I'll go to the top. 7 exam questions. I'll scroll down to them. I recommend reading the whole article. The old-fashioned way is solve X number of problems in a fixed amount of time. Here's what he recommends instead. To show persistence, take some homework problems that you struggled with and explain how the struggle itself was valuable. Curiosity, what are you curious about in this course? Imagination, what has piqued your imagination in this class? Have you found any beauty in mathematics? Have you used creativity, or are you just following steps and using rote memorization? What's an interesting problem that caused you to think for yourself? So he's suggesting you include an assessment like this. This is really bold, and I want to do it, and I haven't, and I'm really disappointed in myself. And then finally, we have James Tanton's article. The complaints we hear from professors are that kids are cheating, kids are not participating, they're getting stuff done way too quickly. They must be cheating. So paragraph A is where he talks about our kids are citizens of the 21st century. Of course, they're going to use all the resources available to them. It might be our curriculum that's out of whack, not our kids. What else does he say? Our task at hand is to engage students in conversation. And the switch to remote teaching is an opportunity to finally set us free, right? Administrators are saying you have to teach remotely. You can't use surveillance software. So it's kind of given us the freedom to be creative. So I'll post a link to these articles. Okay.
This is awesome. Thank you, Fred, for sharing.
Thank you. Give me a few, and in the next few minutes, I'll type a link in the chat box to those. But to me, they just, I mean, I'm almost in tears now. We have so many rules and regulations and invasiveness and that rewards the wrong types of things that we shouldn't be emphasizing in our classes and in our teaching. But to overcome that is going to really, we're going to really have to expand our minds, and it's not going to be easy, is it?
No, not at all. But think of, you know, exams and tests in a different way, so that both we as professors, we enjoy giving it and students enjoy taking it, and they get something out of it.
You know, you could start small. A few semesters ago, I read about an open-ended question that somebody posted as the last problem on their test, and I tried it. It was pretty cool. The last question was, pick a question that I didn't ask on this test that you studied your ass off for.
Oh.
Show the question, give me the answer, show your work, and explain why you think it's correct. Isn't that interesting?
We have to start thinking out of the box.
Yes.
Outside the box. We can't do the things we have been doing.
Right, because don't you hear that from students a lot? Oh man, none of the stuff I studied was on your test. So here's a chance for them to show that, to show their work, show the math. If there's something you did study for that I didn't include on the test, let me see it.
I love that. We also are encouraged to have effective domain questions at the end of exams, and then it's like for a few bonus points. But I absolutely love the formative, making low stakes assignments have more percentage. So I did lower in all of my classes. The exams are not accounting now as much as before, though they're still a bigger chunk. So but they have homework in a way that I reduced the amount of homework, thinking, why do we even give like 30 problems per one assignment in Calc 2? And then we are covering maybe 3 sections a week, which means 90 problems. Maybe we can do the same effect with fewer problems, but then they need to be really selected well. So I spend a lot of time selecting problems, trying to keep them around 12 per section. And that's also what James Stewart, which we are following, recommends. Like if you look into he has some teaching instructor's guide file, which you can find on Cengage. So those are freely available. And then I ask them to upload their written work to Canvas, and I will ask them to do the reflection. So 10 points is for Web of Science score, 10 points is for what they wrote on paper, just looking at it by completeness, because maybe they didn't write out everything. And then the last 10 points is their reflection when I'm supplying a solution to 1 or 2 selected problems. So they look at my solution. And of course, if they have another way to solve it, and I try to come up with 2-3 different versions if possible. So then I think metacognition can help. I also code my exams, both in WebAssign. I used Pearson's MyMathLab last semester in the spring. So yes, you can play with the codes. That's fantastic. But I really don't use the online score because I often find it hurting the student. So I like that idea, show your work, but I really just collect the entire PDF file. And it was sort of hard last semester to grade because it goes per person. So I don't have that uniformity. I can move through a question. So what I did this semester for my first exams is just put everybody's scan into a pre-formatted Word file so that question 1 is on 1-page question. It took me like a lot of time. It's not efficient. So for the second exam, I asked them, look, guys, I know we're protecting trees and paper is really important, but I want you to write 1 question on 1 sheet of paper, not 2 questions. And then I put it into Gradescope. And so now I can just go, you know, question 1 for everybody. I have this rubric. I think Gradescope is free throughout the semester. I'm not sure what happens next year, but so that's something that I'm looking forward to. And we have the Packback for, it is 8% of the grade, where they have curiosity and appreciation for math, beauty of math, and open-ended questions. So find some topic that relates to what we are covering, or just any article online. Google had something really nice last week about math appreciation. And so they can post, but they need to end their post with an open-ended question, which will prompt a peer to respond. And I'm sorry, I don't want to hog the conversation, so I'm sorry.
One of the things that I've considered doing with either D2L test, which is what we use as our LMS, and even, you know, just not to say take-home tests, but every person should know what their own birthday is, as well as probably their student ID. So I would have them write that information at the top of a test. And then if I were to do, say, a calculus question, I would give them, say, a definite integral, but the A and the B would be like the last 2 numbers of their ID. And then, or like in a y equals mx plus b graph, I would be like graph y equals 3x plus b, where b is the month of your birthday. You know, so that way, if they're not able to take a picture of it, or they have to at least write it down, and then you can verify that information. So make it like the infinite stuff that Fred was talking about on paper, even if they're less percentage level assignments, but that just will set the bar in the beginning of the semester where you're telling them, listen, I know what's out there already, and I'm sure they know that we know, but it's at least a preventative measure to at least give some sort of actual assessment where they're not just blatantly trying to cheat by taking a picture of a problem. So I'm sure there's ways that we can all incorporate generic numbers, you know, and into an assessment in some way.
Yeah, there are certain questions, like I've got a couple I can give you, and here's one for trig. The sine of an angle is very large and its cosine is very small. What do you know about the angles? Here's another one. For like a developmental math course or an algebra class. A straight line goes through the point. Let's see, a very steep line, straight line goes through the point 3, -5. Give an example of what the equation of the line could be. So that has no one right answer, and it invites more questions like, what do you mean by a very steep line? Does it go up? Does it go down? And the, you know, it doesn't, yes. Just answer the question any way you want, with anything you want, any equation. So there's an example of types of problems. They're hard to find. I have a few of them.
Yeah.
I also have some websites that I go to, like the math Twitter blogosphere on, or Dan Meyer's blog. Oh, WODB. Which one doesn't belong? There's a lot of sources of non-routine problems. They're hard to find.
So bottom line, we have to learn how to write assessment questions in a way that they can't put it into a system and get an answer. Yeah, you're right. Those kind of questions are hard to find. So if you have any websites that maybe you want to share with us, I also have few of those for different courses. But yeah, I mean, I gave, when was it? Last spring, we had to, it was a last minute, we couldn't use ProctorU. So I gave my exams in WebAssign, and lo and behold, I'm grading, I'm looking through the exam, and I see some of the answers. Oh boy, how could this student come up with such a long, lengthy answer? Well, I checked Mathway, and that's the exact answer in Mathway. So, I mean, it's just took the question, put it in Mathway. That's it. So that's how they find the answers.
One thing that we have to consider, and I was in discussion not very long ago, is our accreditations, because I know that for certain this is a hot item with SACS, and they strongly want accountability and proctoring to accreditate our colleges. And that's a whole nother, talk about another seminar or another meeting, because we're all going to have to answer to that. And it's not like they have answers. They're trying to find out, as much as everybody else is, how to confirm the integrity of what we're trying to assess. But they are, a lot of the ideas that have come up here, they are right now not going to accept. And so we do have to, that's our reality. We're going to have to think about when we're thinking of all of this.
I'm not so sure about that, Eden. I think you can ask non-routine questions that cover material in the official course outline of record. You know, you can just kind of, I don't know, somehow document that. You know, today we're going to cover these topics, and the manner that you might do it might be routine textbook questions, class discussion, group work.
Well, it can be, but it also, if you're giving an individual grade to a student, even the validation that who's taking this test, who's answering those open-ended questions. There's a lot more to it. And I'm just telling you that there are big discussions on our accreditation, and it's not just SACS, it's nationally. So it's just something we need to be aware of and need to have voices in, I think.
You know, I think you're 100% right, but part of me also pushes back. I'm a contrarian sometimes. I've had 30 students, up to 30 students in my classes I've been teaching since 1987, face-to-face. I've never asked anybody for an ID. So now that's an awful large investment for someone to have to sit in the classroom and get bored by me because they already know the material for a semester, but it's cheaper than failing over and over. But I've never worried about who my students, making that linkage, and maybe I should, but it just seems like when we get online, it gets exacerbated. People think about it, but this has been a challenge. This will be a challenge at every college, right?
True.
Absolutely, yes.
I'm sorry, one last thing. How do we ensure, since math is sequential, that, you know, in the future, when they move on to another course, we're creating a trouble then to the student who's struggling and our colleagues as well, stuck with, you know, students with gaps. So that's really the creativity to make. I love those questions that are non-lookable up, non-up, I don't know how to say it, but questions that you can't look up easily. And at the same time, ensure that they get this deep understanding that they need to carry so that they can succeed in their future courses and become good professionals.
Absolutely. So maybe this would be a nice project for all of us while we are going through this pandemic. Maybe we can all start, those of us who are teaching different courses, we create Google Docs and come up with those non-routine questions you can look up on different websites and put it there so that all of us, we can utilize those. So I think this is something that we all can work towards. It is too much for one person to do. So maybe we all can put our heads together and come up with such, database for all these questions. So my clock is saying 5:03. So maybe this would be another topic would be assessment and integrity. So this again would tie in with accreditation. I know that university was not transferring the courses from us if they were not proctored. So this is a big thing. I mean, of course, now that same university, they are doing their tests online, and who knows what they are doing. Maybe they're all take home. But for us, for transferring, students had to bring proof that the courses are having proctored exams. Anyhow, I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Enjoy your time, stay safe and healthy, and look forward to another faculty meetup. We are not going to have one in the month of November, as you all are well aware. The AMATIC conference is happening 3 Fridays during the month of November. We are off, giving everyone off during the month of December, and we see you all back in the month of January. So look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Stay in touch as I am in touch with you.
Yeah, and we'll see you next month at the AMATIC conference.
Absolutely.
And Violetta is speaking